How's it going, guys? We got another episode of the Thieves Talk podcast today. I know it's been a little while, but we're back on it. We're going to be talking about the Major 3 split for the Thieves. We're mostly going to talk about the tournament since we did cover pretty much all of the matches leading up to the tournament. So we got 3 matches that the Thieves played in the tournament this past weekend. And really, it was not the best showing from the Thieves. I mean, statistically, when we're talking tournament wise, this was the best showing that the Thieves have had all year. But there were definitely some things that I felt like they showed a lot different during the actual major in the qualifiers than how they showed on the tournament. So we're going to go ahead and dive into all those things right now. So the first match the Thieves played was against the New York Subliners. We knew this was going to be a tough matchup. I mean, either way, the Thieves were in the winner's bracket, and pretty much every team that makes it in the winner's bracket is destined to face off against a top 4 team. That's kind of just how it's set up this year. All of the teams that are constantly winning are the same teams. So, we knew it was going to be a top 4 team that the Thieves were going to have to face off against. And sure enough, the Thieves faced off against the Subliners, who I did think we had the best chance at winning. I figured if we were to play Optic, Phase, or Ultra, that was going to be a really, really, really tough matchup. But I figured New York was where we had our best chance to really take advantage of the fact that they're the lowest of the top 4, I would say. Um, as you can see here, Thieves were not able to do that. We ended up losing the series 3-1, and the only map we were able to take was the Rio Hardpoint, which was the first map of the series. Now, I'm kind of surprised by that because we'll look at it in a second, but the Thieves actually were down in the hardpoint for most of the map and were somehow able to bring it back and win 250 to 215. So we can look at the overall here. Overall, Ghosty was the only one who broke positive with a 1.01 KD. Everybody else on the Thieves was negative, whereas Skies was the only one who went negative with a -2, and everybody else on his team was positive. Hydra, I mean, Hydra's a superstar. As you can see, they have him as the match MVP. He was playing really well. Had a really solid event, and I mean, as we can see here too, Sib had a really good series against the Thieves. Really unfortunate. I do think there were some things that the Thieves could have done that would have prevented some of this from happening. Obviously, Hydra is one of those guys that he's gonna play well pretty much every time, so it's kind of playing around him in a sense. But that's the breakdown of the overview here. As we said, Hydra 1.2 in the HP, 1.5 in S&D, which is crazy, and then 1.7 in control. I mean, yeah, there was no stopping Hydra. Map 1 here, as we said, we had the Rio Hardpoint. Ghosty with a +16. Dude was absolutely frying. He was going insane. Joe Deceives had a stinker at a -16, 19 and 35. Not ideal, but somehow we're able to close out that Rio. Kremp -2 and Nasty with a +1. Sky is again the only one negative for them. But as we can see here from this hardpoint breakdown, which I would like to give a shout out to Breaking Point because this was not here before. So Breaking Point, thank you for doing this. This actually is super helpful. Before I was taking screenshots of the game flow charts. Now I don't have to do that. Now I can just go into the normal page that we're on when we're going through the stats and stuff. But as you can see, these were down all the way until Hill 10, halfway through Hill 10, where they were able to take that lead and bring it back to 250 to 215. The Thieves and Subliners were pretty split when it comes to kills. Damage was pretty split. A little more in favor of New York. And the highest lead was 83, as we can see this big gap right here for New York. And for the Thieves, it was only 35, which was the final tally. The longest hold was the Thieves with the 48-second mark. I'm sure it's the 7 to 8 hill right here, going from 87 to 135. That kind of kept them in. They were really falling away from the Subliners here going into this 7th hard point, but they were able to turn that around bring it back up to keep it within striking distance, and then that was where they kind of were able to make some plays to keep them pretty much parallel, slowly kind of coming in to take over in that 10 and 11 hard point. Um, so that's how we were able to finish out that Rio hard point. Uh, as we said, start wasn't necessarily the best, but Ghosty went absolutely insane with a ton of damage as well, and it was able to close out this hardpoint one to take us into the 6-star S&D. Now the 6-star S&D, we fall 6-3, and I really was thinking we would have a better opportunity on the search and destroy just based off of the fact that the Thieves Search and Destroy has been pretty solid. I would say that's been their most consistent game mode so far. Obviously, they haven't been playing a lot of the top tier teams, so we haven't really gotten the best sample size of how well the Thieves can do Search and Destroy wise. I know that when they played Optic, they did well in the search, but Optic was not playing up to what I would say their standards were in the online qualifiers. They kind of didn't play great to start off this major either, but they closed it out when it mattered. And so that's why I really thought the Thieves would have a good chance at taking the 6-star. And I definitely thought if they were to win the search, that they were going to lose the control, and then maybe we'd have a chance at Vista. Probably wasn't ideal. But here we have the KDs, and everybody on New York was positive, whereas Joe Deceives was the only one to even break even. Crump was only -1 though, which isn't bad, and Nasty -4 and Ghosty -4 as well. Ghosty with a little more damage than Nasty, pretty average. All around they all had pretty similar damage score lines, but as you can see here, we have the total breakdown here of wins and losses, and I don't remember too much from the search specifically, but as we can see here, everything kind of just favored New York besides Plants. Plants was the only thing that was even. Um, Losing a lot of opening gunfights, that's not ideal. Letting New York get first bloods, really going to be hard to bounce back from that. That's something that we've noticed the Thieves doing well at before, was when they would get their first bloods, they were often winning the rounds. And that was something that to start the year they weren't doing super well. So that really hurt us, especially knowing that the invasion control odds were we were not going to win that. New York has been a really good control team. That's kind of been like their game mode. So knowing that the Thieves are on the complete opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to control, not looking good for them. And sure enough, they go down 3-1. Now, as we can see here, again, everybody on the Thieves in the negative. Hydra had another insane map with a 1.71 KD going +10, and everybody else was at least +3. As we can see, Skies is the lowest one here. Thieves were able to win the opening round, but then after that, just got wiped. Kills in favor of New York, damage slightly in favor of New York, and then the ticks on attacking round is really a big difference here. The 5-2, really not ideal. You're not going to win many controls that way. And I mean, with the little kill count, you're not going to win many controls that way either. As we said, New York we knew was the better team at control. It's been their mode, whereas it has not been for the Thieves. So we kind of knew this one was chalked up, unfortunately. That's why this 6-star was so important. So the Thieves fall in those two maps. And at that point, I think the momentum was just purely on New York's side. You have two back-to-back map losses, and with the control, you pretty much chalk it up as a loss right off the rip, just because that's kind of how the Thieves have been on control, unfortunately. So for this hard point, New York was able to bounce back with the 250 to 184, and I mean the Thieves never even had the lead, as we can see here. Joe Deceives the only one breaking even. Ghosty -7, Crimp -9, and Nasty -3. Ghosty was still doing a decent amount of damage, same as Nasty. Crump was on a little bit of the slower end, which we will talk about that as well. And again, another crazy map from Hydra as well as Sib, both with a +10 KD. And then Skies was the only one negative for them. As we can see here, the first hill was where everything was closest. Which, I mean, the first two hills are pretty much the mixiest, I would say. And then from that point, that's kind of where New York was able to just pull away. And, the Thieves got a little close here at this hill 8 mark, but then after that, it just didn't go in our favor, and New York was able to really pull away. I want to say at this point was where they kind of used their streaks, and the Thieves really just didn't have a chance to like get into it. I think around the earlier mark of the match, it was kind of like, all right, we know Thieves aren't really doing too much here. Probably not our map. We're just going to have to get ready for whoever we're going to face in losers bracket, unfortunately. And as we can see here, again, everything in favor of New York. Thieves never had a lead at any point throughout this match, or throughout this map, I should say. And the longest hold was 38 seconds compared to the New York's 50. But yeah, everything was in favor of New York, really, besides for that first map. And even then, for the most part, it was still in favor of New York, just kind of up until the end. So this is what sent us down to the losers bracket, which, was probably what we were expecting, as I said before, based off of the fact that the Thieves were pretty much going to have to face off against one of the top four teams. And I mean, unless they pull an upset, you're being sent to losers bracket. That's just kind of how it is. So that's where we get into our first losers bracket matchup against the Boston Breach here. How's it going, Scarecrow? Appreciate you stopping by. So for this Boston Breach matchup, it was actually way more nerve wracking than it needed to be. This is where I feel like I don't know how to put it. This is where things got really scary. To me, I felt like there was no reason this series should have been as close as it was, and it just, man, it was gonna give me a heart attack. We start off with a loss on Rio, which, again, as we go back, we just beat New York on. Literally earlier in the day, we had beat New York. Um, or the day before. I don't remember if they were different days. It was different days, yeah. So the day before, they had just beaten New York on Rio, and then we come in and we lose 239 to 250. Again, the overview here before I get too ahead of myself. Ghosty with a plus 21, Joe Deceives plus 3, Nasty minus 2, and Kremp with a minus 19. So this was what I want to talk about with Kremp. Everybody's giving Kremp a lot of shit, but for one, from what I saw and what I've heard, his controller broke, I believe, sometime during the subliners match. I believe sometime during the subliners match or after the subliners match. Either way, his controller was broken early in the weekend, which is really 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 unfortunate. And as Thieves fans, we need to give him a little bit of some slack because last year we experienced the same kind of deal. Kenny had his controller break right before a match, and the Thieves lost. And it seems like the Thieves have bad experiences with controllers. Now, obviously, minus 19 is rough. We don't know to the extent that his controller was damaged, but that plays a factor in how you're going to play. Obviously, everybody gets comfortable to their controller, and when you look at the difference, I mean, a minus 9 is still not ideal. We would love to see that be better, but a minus 9 versus a minus 19 in an overall stat is much better. So something definitely felt off. I remember watching, and I don't remember which map it was. It might have been the Boston Rio. Um, but I remember watching, and they were on Kremp's POV, and there was something that happened, and I can't pinpoint what it was. Maybe I'll go back and I'll find it later. But there was something that Kremp did that made me just think there must be something going on because that doesn't feel normal. It made me think that maybe there was something going on with his controller. And then after the Thieves were wiped out of the tournament, he tweeted out saying that he broke his controller. I want to say probably before or during the Boston match or the New York match, because I think it was early in the weekend. Um, but I'm fully expecting to see a bounce back out of Kremp coming into this next major. Scarecrow Crimp shouldn't be dropped, in my opinion. Yeah, and I completely agree. I think a lot of people were talking about on Twitter because for some reason there was a leak saying that they were going to make a roster change, and then JCap and Brandon, their GM, both came out saying like, "Hey, we're not making a roster change." Like, I don't know where that came from. Um, and I think that's the smart thing to do. I think it's too late in the season to make a change on anything. Um, and it seems like it would be a waste at this point. You have a better opportunity of letting your team grow, especially because realistically overall this was the best major the Thieves have had so far. So taking what you've done and now swapping out somebody else hoping that it'll make it better really just doesn't make a lot of sense to me this late in the season. I think it's best to keep everybody and let them continue to grow together and see how this goes for the rest of the season. Now, if things don't go great by the end of the season, maybe then you start saying, hey, what can we do to make some upgrades, make some changes, and you can go from there. But I think at this point, it's just too late to try and make a change, especially knowing like who's out there to pick up. I really don't feel like there's too much that we can get that I feel like would be a better return for what we currently have. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense. So I think for one, I think they are going to keep Kremp. I think they're going to keep everybody. And for two, I don't think they should change if they were to, which I don't think they will. I think it's, like I said, I think it's too late for that. And I'm sure that the Thieves know that. But anyway, this map 1 Rio, as we said, not ideal. Losing 239 to 250 against Boston. It just shouldn't happen. The Thieves' hardpoint has been much better. And I mean, they've been good on Rio. As we said, they beat New York. Just shouldn't have lost to Boston. Ghosty with a 1.1, Joe Deceives with a 1.3, Kremp was 0.67 with a minus 10, and Nasty 0.79 minus 6. But again, look at Nasty's damage. He's always doing damage. That's the thing that I look at when I look at Nasty stats. I don't really look at this. If I see his damage is up there, I mean, he had a higher damage output than Joe Deceives with less kills. I mean, that's to me that just screams Team Call of Duty right there. So I'm completely content with that. Kremp was the one who had a little bit of a slower map, as we can see. Still not putting up a ton of damage either. And for the Boston Breach side of things, Snoopy with a +8 and Beans with a +3. And as we can see, this is kind of a chaotic chart here. Kills are pretty even, only 5 kill difference. Damage definitely goes a little more in favor of the Breach. And the Thieves had the highest hill point, or the highest lead. And they also had the longest hold, not by much though. And as you can see, it started off pretty close. Thieves created a little bit of separation, but was never able to really like pull away and stray too far away from Boston. And then from this 4th to 5th hill, that's where Boston made that big jump to keep them close. And then after that, it was back up again and just barely able to edge out the Thieves at the end of the map. So yeah, really not ideal. But we go into the Rio Search and Destroy, and we're able to take that one 6-2. I figured that one should be done and dusted. The Thieves Search and Destroy has been way better than Boston's. Boston has not been a good Search and Destroy team. So I figured that one was going to be piece of cake. And here, Kremp had a little bit of a bounce back with a +3 on the map, and everybody was in the positive for the Thieves, Joe being the only one that was even. Everybody on Boston in the negative, and as we can see here, had 2 wins to start it off, lost the next 2, and then 1 out the rest of the way. We definitely led in kills, 27 to 18. That's a big difference. And we split the opening duels, which is kind of surprising. I would have thought it would be a little more, but that just means that Thieves were able to capitalize even in the opportunity, or even in the rounds where they were down in players. So that's big to see out of the Thieves. Obviously, we want them to be taking advantage of when they get the first bloods, but if they don't, the fact that there were 4 first bloods for them and they only won 2 rounds, probably those were the rounds that they were able to get, their wins was 2 of the first bloods, but the Thieves were able to fight back and still able to close out with a 6-2. and plants even diffuses whatever. Uh, don't feel like that's too big of a stat to harp on. So we tie up the series after that Rio search, which was absolutely crucial. Definitely needed that because we knew control was not going to go our way. I was hoping, with it being a Karachi, this is a map that Thieves have not really played much of when it comes to kind of any game mode, really. We haven't seen much hardpoint Karachi, we haven't seen much search Karachi. So the control really was not, you know, expecting to get a win again, which again was also very nerve wracking knowing that sub base was up next, and that has not been the most ideal map for the Thieves on hardpoint either. But let's continue talking about the Karachi before we jump into the sub base. As we can see here, Ghosty's the only one to go positive with a +6. Everybody else was in the negative, and the Boston Breach had Beans, who's +6, and Priesta, who had a whopping +15. Dude, I mean, he had a map right there. Um, pretty pretty. I feel like somewhat split. Obviously, 10 kill difference. Damage is pretty split evenly, and then ticks was split pretty evenly. So at that point, things could have gone both ways. Um, if I remember correctly, there was another situation where I think the Thieves could have could have won this. I don't know if I should say won because they were down 2-1 or it was 1-1 or whatever it was. So there was no guarantee that they were still going to win. But they had another round where they just don't stack the point. And the thing that really doesn't make a lot of sense to me is how are these same issues or these same flaws happening multiple times? Because this is an issue that the Thieves have had on control for a while now. Multiple series where we've seen if the guys just stack the point, we win the round and we now have momentum on our side because we win an offensive round. But the Thieves, for some reason, just haven't been stacking the point. So I don't know if it's just, in the moment lapse of judgment or whatever it might be. But there have been multiple times now that the Thieves really just need to get on the point. Just get on the point. And at that point, if you lose out, it is what it is. But you got to stack the point. You got to stack the point. They get 3 or 4 dead, and then they don't stack the point. And then the other team is able to make it back in their wave and end up winning the round, ultimately winning the map. Not ideal for the Thieves. Something that I think absolutely needs to be fixed in order for them to start winning controls. Because a lot of the controls where they don't stack are the ones where it looks the closest. They look like they have the best chance to win, and then they don't do that, and then they lose the whole thing. So that's my take from that control there. We should have won this at least 3-1. Oh, I completely agree. We should have won the Rio. We should have won this one. And then at worst, we lose the control. And then I think we take the sub base. I mean, maybe not the sub base. The sub base, I was still very nervous about. But here we are. We're talking about it right now. So let's break it down. Ghosty with a +3, Joe Deceives +2, Kremp and Nasty both -1, which is great. Probably the best like overall stat line we've had so far in this major or in this tournament at least. Snoopy was the only one positive with a +2, but everybody else was pretty even as well. Again, very back and forth hard point. This time the Thieves were able to edge it out. The kills were split pretty much down the middle. Damage split pretty much down the middle. Thieves had the highest points on one of their hills and the longest hold. But this this P3 hill was where the Thieves got that good little bit of boost. But as you can see, from here, Boston slowly makes that upswing, and that's where it kind of stays tight pretty much all the way until hill 9 through 12. That's where the Thieves are slowly able to kind of like break out and finish out the map strong and get that win. But with how they've been playing on sub base, man, I really was not looking forward to this map. I felt like they started off hot and then they kind of slowed down. And I mean, dude, I can't lie. Kremp gave me a freaking heart attack, man. In right here, the 245, 195. We kill out 3 guys on P1, and there's nobody by the point. There's 10 seconds left. Thieves only need 5 to win, and Kremp just runs by the point. And I'm sitting there freaking out because it's like, dude, we only need 5 points. If you just get on the point, we win the game. Why are you going to new? That's a big risk here, and nobody's able to pick up that time. But luckily, Thieves were able to kill out and still get those 5 seconds to close it out in the P2. But man, did that give me a heart attack, especially after some of the stuff that led to this map. It was definitely freaking me out. But either way, we close it out 250 195. That brings us to the high rise S&D. And again, as we talked about with the Rio, Thieves are just better at search and destroy, realistically. Boston has not been a good search and destroy team. And so I was hoping that that would continue to be the case going into this map 5. It was just a little nerve wracking, as I said, with the stuff leading up to it. But Ghosty had a really good map going 10-4. Nasty with a +4, 2.0 KD, 8-4 overall. And then Kremp and Joe Deceives -3 and -1. Really not terrible. Pentagram was the only one to go positive for Boston. Everybody else was in the negative. And it really just felt like Boston didn't really have much to do on their opening attacks. The Thieves really just needed to play patient and kind of wait everything out. And I think that's exactly what they did. 6 more kills than Boston. They had 6 first bloods compared to Boston's 3. As we can see here, they won 3 rounds. Maybe those were the rounds that they got their first bloods. And then plants were split down the middle. There were no diffuses. But yeah, that's how the Thieves were able to close out their match against Boston. And as you can see here, Ghosty was voted the match MVP with a 1.12 hardpoint KD, a 2.13 S&D KD, which is crazy, man. Shout out Ghosty. He's my dad. And a 1.35 control KD. Solid match out of him. I know he didn't necessarily think he had the best weekend, but I think he was pretty solid throughout this weekend. No complaints from the fans' perspective. Now, this was our last match of the tournament. We faced off against the Miami Heretics, which I definitely thought was another match that we could have and should have won. I think Miami was not one of those teams that I really thought the Thieves would struggle super bad with. Obviously, Real has been playing insane, so that's that's tough. He's been playing really, really well. But as we can see here for the overview, Vickel's the only guy to go negative with -14, whereas for the Thieves, Ghosty was -3, Kremp -6, Nasty +5, and Joe Deceives +9. Obviously, again, we would like to see Ghosty's numbers a little higher, but I mean, being -3 is not terrible. I think that's just that weight that gets put on Ghosty as the leader of the team and kind of being the star level talent that, Ghosty is. But either way, overall, really not horrible. It's just this 6-star, I really thought the Thieves should have been able to win this 6-star. I knew winning the first hard point or winning one of the first 2 maps was going to be really big for the Thieves, especially seeing that we had sub base again. Still, even after the win against Boston, was not thrilled to see that. My only hope was that because we had just played this map, that maybe we would have a better chance at winning. Obviously, Boston is statistically the worst team in the league, so us beating them on sub base really didn't make me feel super confident about the fact that we were going to be facing Miami, who is definitely a better team on sub base. But for this map 1, it was the 6-star. We lost 250 to 232. And Vickel was the only one negative with a -7. Whereas for the Thieves, everybody besides Joe Deceives was negative. Joe Deceives was the only one positive with a 1.1 and +3. And as we can see here, another one that was a really tight race pretty much the entire time. It really, at that point, it could go anybody's way. And it just didn't really work out in our favor. Everything was split pretty evenly. It was really just one of those tight matches that kind of just didn't fall in our favor. As I said, would be nice to see Ghosty's numbers a little better. But when you look at how many engagements he had and the fact that he's only -1, it's not like he had a bad map by any means. 6,000 damage, dude did just fine. It's more of the overall stats that I think would have been nice to see. Would have been good to see him break even, because I think he's more than capable of doing that. But not bad overall. Kremp -3, not terrible either, especially compared to how he played against Boston. Wasn't ideal, but was able to bounce back a little bit with only going -3. Nasty only -1. Kremp actually did really solid damage as well. And again, Ghosty with really high damage too. So not terrible, just one of those that really didn't fall in our favor. Now, Search and Destroy, this is what was tough. Scarecrow says pain. This was pain. This was pain right here. The man, this one was tough. This one I had to kind of take a break from tweeting out live updates after this one. This one was rough. Thieves lose their 6-star 6-5, and as we can see here, the Thieves were up 5-4 and lost 2 rounds back to back to lose. And we'll get to the last round. We'll get there. But yeah, Lucky 10-7 with a 1.4 medals, breaks even, and Real with a +1. For the Thieves, Ghosty was -2, Joe Deceives +1, Kremp +2, and Nasty -4. Now, as we see here, kills split pretty evenly for the most part. First Blood's pretty even for the most part. But when we get to this last round, man, this round 11, Thieves were up in numbers. They were up 2-1. They knew where Lucky was, and they got two-pieced. They got two-pieced. And that, I think that was a huge momentum shift, really. Because if they win that round, they trade out, get the win. We win the 6-star 6-5. We go into high rise, whereas we can see we won that one. Now we can afford to lose the sub base. But once we lost that 2v1, I think the morale was probably shot a little bit, and just really wasn't ideal. I know from a fan's perspective, my morale was shot, but really, really unfortunate. It was just, I think Ghosty and Kremp, they either just didn't time their double chow right, or one guy went, I don't know. I don't really know what it was. Maybe they just got unfortunate luck, and Lucky hit insane shots. I don't really know what it was. I would be interested to hear like their comms at that point to see if maybe there was like a 3-2-1 and they just kind of misplayed it, or if it was just that Lucky hit insane shots and was able to win both the gunfights. But either way, we lost that round 11, bringing us to the high rise control, which at that point I was really, really, really nervous, knowing that our control has not been ideal. But somehow we were able to close it out with a 3-1. And actually, I mean, the dudes were frying. Everybody was positive for the Thieves. The lowest one was Ghosty with a +6. I mean, they came out hot. They won, with insane amounts of kills. Just absolutely wiped them on the attack side of things with 5.5 ticks, whereas the Heretics had none. Like, the Thieves came out hot on the control. They came out the best way you could have hoped after a loss like that. As we said, though, the unfortunate part is knowing that you have to play sub-base hardpoint next, and that is not your go-to map. But yeah, I mean, great map, really. The Thieves, it just seemed like they were wrapping streaks. It was like they couldn't be killed. And so they were able to win that high rise 3-1 in a really convincing fashion, which was nice to see. Hopefully, this is what we'll see more of going into this next major and the qualifiers leading up to the major. And, the inevitable end of our run was this sub-base hardpoint where we lost 250 to 152. Really just was never in it. Kremp had a really, really, really bad map. I mean, 5-19 with a minus 14 overall. That can't happen, man. That can't happen. And I know, as we said before, his controller was broken, but this is tough. And when you look at the spreadsheet here, the breakdown, the line graph, whatever you want to call it, Miami just took the lead early and never looked back. Thieves never really got close. It was not the best map for us. As you can see, everybody on their end of the match was positive, and they outkilled, outdamage, and highest point lead 147 versus 3. Not ideal. We did have the longest hold, but it was too little, too late. We were already down 245. It wasn't happening. As we said, Ramp 5-19, and he was 5-19 late into this hard point. At that point, I feel like it's kind of just chalked up. Not even doing a lot of damage either. That makes it really tough. So this was kind of where everything came crashing down. Our hopes to keep the run alive fell onto a sub base, and I think if we win this 6-star, we lose this sub base, I think we have a chance to win in Karachi. And this one was a toss up. This is one that I feel like you can't really complain about. You lose sometimes. You're gonna lose some, and this one was one where it was just like, hey, just wasn't our map. We were close. We battled, and just weren't able to close it out. This one was like we had no chance. We stood no chance. It was pretty much over before it started. So that's where the 6-star really would have came into play. But yeah, we end up finishing top 8, or 7th through 8th, however you want to put it. And they got 15 points for the CDL points and ended up getting a $7,500 cash prize, I think, for that finish. Not a huge incentive here, not a huge cash prize out of that. But as I said before, this is their best placing so far. So that's a really good start to hopefully next major they'll be able to kind of build off of that, and we'll see some better rotations out of them map wise, because I agree with Scarecrow. We definitely need to strengthen our map pool. We can't really allow us to just get screwed on our second hard point, because then that forces us we have to win our first hard point, because we're probably not going to win our control. And then if we have to play a sub base, that's just kind of setting us up for failure. So we definitely need to strengthen our map pool, and we need to get better at control. We need to improve at control. Those are like the biggest things that I think the Thieves need to work on. I think overall their skill on hardpoint is not that bad. It's just they need to find more maps to play well at. And their search and destroy has been solid. Pretty much every map that we've seen them play, search and destroy wise, they've done a really good job on. Again, yes, they lost here, but it was close the entire time, and they should have won the map. So I really don't think search is too much of an issue, and hardpoint isn't too much of an issue. It's just control absolutely needs to be fixed. There needs to be something done to at least make this a winnable map. I mean, because right now, yes, we won here, but typically this has not been a winnable map for us. So if we can get our map 3s to be kind of up and down, at least like a toss up on whether or not we're going to win, that's much better than what we have right now. Because right now it's pretty much just chalk it up, go next. And then, as I said, if you have to go and play a sub base right after that, it's not ideal. So hopefully that's some of the stuff that gets worked on during this break before we go into the next qualifiers. But I forgot to pull this up. We can pull up the schedule here so we can see what it looks like coming up into the next major. So I tweeted it out as well, but the first week we face off against LAG, which out of all of the lower ranked teams, this is the team that we've had the most difficulty with. I think that this should change because LAG has not been playing great. So the Thieves should be able to close this one out against the Gorillas. Then we face off against Boston Breach again, and I really just don't see how Boston Breach gets any better at this point. I feel like it's way too late into the season. They've made their roster changes, and it still hasn't really worked out for them. So this needs to be a win. If it's not, that there's another problem. But the Thieves need to beat Boston Breach, so that should be a 2-0 start. Then we face off against the Royal Ravens, who has looked a little better, but I still think they're overall a better land team than they are online. So I think the Thieves should have a good chance at beating the Ravens. I think this is going to be the best like lower level team that they face this split. You could argue because I think they play Vegas as well. You could argue maybe Vegas, but I think Carolina has shown better stints than Vegas has more recently. Um, and then our next matchup is against the Toronto Ultra, which again don't really see us winning that one unless we're able to have a miracle upset. And after that is FaZe. Again, really don't think we're going to win either of these. I think these are kind of the ones that we're expecting to lose, or we are expected to lose, I should say. And then we play Vegas Legion and close it out against the Subliners again. I still think that the Subliners are the team that the Thieves can beat. I think that's our best chance. I think the Thieves have an opportunity to go 5-2. I think more than likely it'll be 4-3. I don't know if they would beat the top four teams, but I think if we go 5-2, I think the Subliners is going to be the team that we beat. And if somehow we're able to do better than that, I mean, that'll be a huge step for the Thieves. I think there was a chart that I saw Money League Stats did on Twitter, and the Thieves have not been able to beat a top four team yet. Every time they've played a top four team, they've lost. So if they're able to get over that hump and beat any of the top four teams, whether it be Ultra FaZe or New York, I think that'll be a huge step in the right direction for them. Should be a big morale boost and confidence booster to kind of help them see how it'll be like when they get to LAN. And if they beat those teams, I would assume at that point they're in winners bracket, and you're going to have to face off against Ultra, Atlanta, New York, Optic, any of those teams. Odds are that's who you're going to have to face off against, because FaZe, Optic, and Ultra are going to be the top three. So they're going to be the ones that are most likely to face off against like the lowest seeded winners bracket team, whether that be like a Miami or a Ravens, or even Seattle at this point, because Seattle's been doing a little better. That's who those teams are probably going to play. Whoever ends up getting first. Whereas if the Thieves are kind of like middle of the pack, they're going to have to face off against whether it be FaZe, Ultra, or Optic, whoever's in the middle of the pack for them as well. So we'll see how all that stuff goes. Obviously, we have a while for these qualifiers. It goes all the way until the end of June before we get our next event. We're almost towards the end of May, but we have about another week or so before the matches even start off. And then we go through the entire June month before we get that next major, which is supposed to be Burbank, California, I believe. And there's supposed to be no fans, which really blows. That would have been nice to go to, especially since California is the closest one that I can get to. That would have been really cool to be able to go to California and watch the matches there for the weekend, but unfortunately, no fans, no access. So the Thieves had mentioned that they might try and do another watch party thing that they've done before and do that for the major itself, possibly like a multi-day thing. I believe that's something they mentioned at the last watch party they did. So that would be really cool if they do something like that. I would, if you're in California or close to Burbank at least, I would definitely keep an eye out for that. See if that's something that you're able to do. Obviously, the players won't be playing out of the compound; they'll be actually at the venue, so probably won't get to see the players unless they do something like after that. But yeah, I strongly suggest if you're able to go, you should. It's really cool, always a great time. But yeah, that's how we're looking for this major leading up to the tournament. As I said, I think Thieves could go 4-3, maybe 5-2 if we're able to get an upset. New York, we should be able to beat them at least 3-2. Yeah, I think New York is our best chance at getting an upset. I really don't think we'll get FaZe or Ultra. I think both of those two teams are like too high up on that totem pole. I think New York is our best opportunity, and I think at best we would get a 3-1, and that's kind of if we're getting lucky. I feel like I think odds are it would end up being 3-2, and we just outperform them in the searches and are able to kind of steal one away, whether it be the first or the second hard point. I don't think it'll be control unless we see a really big control leap going into this next major. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's really tough to say. I think like I said, I think it's either 4-3 or 5-2 to end the split. Um, Either way, hopefully it's a winner's bracket. That's my hope. At this point, I don't care if the Thieves go 4-3 or they go 5-2. As long as they make winners bracket, that's all that matters. Because if somehow they're able to win in winners bracket, now we're just one step farther along. And even if they don't, it's a guaranteed 2 matches. It's a guaranteed 2 series that the Thieves get to play. So that's all I'm hoping for. That's the big difference to me. So we'll kind of see how all that stuff goes. We have a while to wait, unfortunately, but I'm excited. I'm excited for the matches to get back underway and see the changes that the Thieves have made. Obviously, as I said, I don't think any of it is roster based. I think it'll just be things that they've worked on kind of in this break. Obviously, 6-star has been a really good hard point for them, and there's supposed to be some changes being made to the 6-star hard point, so that could affect them. That could affect their map pool as well. Hopefully, it doesn't. Hopefully, that doesn't cause too many issues for the Thieves in their camp, because as we said earlier, they really need to be able to expand their map pool to more than what they have now, just to really help them out in the future, because you're definitely not going to win a tournament with a really small map pool. That's where Optic kind of stood out against Ultra. They just had a better map pool than what Ultra did, and as Kenny and multiple guys from Optic said, when they saw the map breakdown going into the finals, they knew it was going to be a 4-0 just based off of their map pool. So that's something that Thieves would really, really benefit from if they're able to expand expand on that front. So we'll see, as I said, going into the qualifiers. But we got about a week before that happens. I will try and have this live or this podcast episode uploaded as soon as possible. I've had a bit of a different work schedule, so it might take a little bit, but the good thing is we have a little bit of time before matches kick up again, and I'm hoping to record another video and have that hopefully posted fairly soon also. So we'll see how that goes. It'll again kind of depend on my work schedule and all that kind of stuff, but ideally I can get that done and hopefully uploaded before the matches start. If not, have it within the first week or two of these new matches. So keep a lookout for that. I'm going to try and start doing a better job with some of the YouTube content and hopefully grow that side of things a little bit more, because we are now up to 100 subscribers on the YouTube channel, which is awesome, and we're almost up to 1,000 followers on Twitter. So those are kind of the two things that are happening with the content side of things. Obviously, to me, the next step for the YouTube is just to get anywhere from 100 to 500 and then so on and so forth. But that's going to take a little bit of time, going to take some extra effort, but I think we'll get there. So I appreciate everybody who tunes into these and follows the Thieves Talk Twitter. Something that I really didn't think would happen. I didn't think that we would be able to kind of get as many people tuning into some of this stuff as we do. So that's awesome. And I'm glad that there's other people that enjoy this stuff just as much as I do. And hopefully we can kind of keep building on that and see where it takes us. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's video, today's podcast. And I apologize again for not having an episode last week. It was just kind of hard with work, and then I went home for a little bit, so that's why we didn't really have one. But this one was a little bit longer, so hopefully it kind of makes up for that. And yeah, we'll be back doing the podcast again once these matches start up again, And yeah, for now, just keep an eye out for the Thieves Talk Twitter. Have some more posts on there, and keep an eye out for the Thieves Talk YouTube, where if you miss the stream, this will be up, and we'll have some other content trying to go up as soon as possible as well. So yeah, that's gonna do it. Appreciate everybody, and we will see you guys in the next one. Peace.